Congressman, good to have you with us today.
Well, it's great to be with you, Todd. Interesting day on a lot of accounts.
Well, it is, and a lot of different stories to talk about. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Do you support President Trump's plan to use the military to round up the illegals?
Well, I would say this. Maybe the senator, and I'm not going to get into the squabble between the senator and the president, but maybe the senator has jumped the gun a little bit. I don't know how the president plans on using the military, but there's a law called posse comitatus, which disallows the uniformed military service in the United States to be used for law enforcement. However, they are allowed to assist and support law enforcement. So, if you're talking about I used to fly around in a helicopter with a uniform on that said U.S. Army. You could fly on the border, you could fly wherever in support of law enforcement, whether that was searching for or identifying illegal migrants crossing the border, or finding a meth lab, or doing a warrant delivery, something like that. You can support, but that there's a law that prohibits us from doing that, and President Trump hasn't enumerated how the military would be used. So I would just say, let's take a breath. These people don't belong here. They have broken the law. We have provisions in place: border security, border patrol, immigration and customs enforcement, aided by local law enforcement. We can also use the provision of stopping all the subsidization that keeps them coming and keeps them here. There's a lot of ways to aid and assist in deportation. We haven't seen the entire plan, and so I'm not going to be critical of either one at this point.
Well, look, we have a problem. We've been invaded. We've got at least 20 million illegals here. They all need to go, and however we can get that taken care of. Again, my estimation here, Congressman, is the way I see it, we have been invaded by an army of illegals. Therefore, we need an army of our own to push them back across the border on the other side. How we do that, they can figure that out.
There's no doubt about that, Todd. And if the president's basically saying, I want to use the military on the border to stop the invasion, then I think that's another conversation. But the president hasn't enumerated how, and I don't think anybody should be jumping the gun. But what I do think is we all should be supporting the president's charge, which was validated by an overwhelming vote, to have these these people that are here illegally, like you said, murdering, raping, robbing, destroying communities, to have them removed from the country legally. It is within our right. It is our duty to do that. We either have laws that we abide by, or we don't have laws that we. And for all these people that say that deportation is going to be difficult, we shouldn't do it, and somebody's grandma, might be deported, and that's a bad look. I would just ask that person, well, which laws are we going to uphold? Which laws are we going to allow people to break? We all need to know in case we don't want to follow the law. So let's call this what it is. It is adjudication of the law as passed by Congress and signed by the president. The executive branch has the duty to faithfully execute the law. So the president is going to do that, and I support him wholeheartedly in that effort.
Congressman, I don't mean to. I'm a contrarian today, and I have to apologize to you because I gotta ask you about Speaker Mike Johnson. I get it that I get that he came back and clarified what he was talking about with these bathrooms. It just seems to me that's a no-brainer that he should have hit out of the ballpark at the first swing. I just don't get why he had to come back and say, well, I really do believe that men are men and women are women. Say that in the first place, Mr. Speaker. Come on, get a backbone, sir.
Yeah, I don't know what the clarification is, but it's pretty simple to me, Todd. Men are men, women are women. If you've got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom that is associated with your sex at birth. Makes it pretty simple. Done.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, and so we finally got around to that, but I'm like, goodness gracious, Mr. Speaker. And if you can't get that, if you're hemming and hawing on that kind of stuff, I'm really concerned about the president's agenda because it's going to be pretty darn aggressive.
Yeah, well, look, this is a new era. Of course, Delaware has sent us this representative, and I think this is an opportunity to clarify what the federal government has been imposing on many of its citizens, and its citizens don't like it, and now the federal government, of course, has to it has to deal with this, and rightly so, because many of our citizens have had to deal with this. They've had their schools upturned, they've had their businesses had to do all kinds of crazy things, and now the federal government's on the hook. And I'm glad he finally got there. Maybe he shouldn't have taken as long as he did, but again, men are men, women are women. Go to the sex that was assigned at birth, and that clarifies it. Let's move on to the important issues of saving the republic.
And on that note, back in Pennsylvania, you've got Senator Bob Casey refusing to concede the election. You've got House races. They're still counting votes, and I find it very interesting, Congressman, that every single one of these races that was not called on or the day after the election are now suddenly going in favor of the Democrats.
Yeah, look, this is the 21st century. Somehow our country has survived for over 200 years where we went on one day and voted in person, unless you had an absentee ballot because you were sick at home or something like that. And suddenly in the 21st century, now 2 weeks after the election, we still don't know who's elected in some of these places. And literally, they're trying to find ballots in Pennsylvania. I'm happy that we've been keeping an eye on things, but it's not enough. It should be a sign to us about how flawed this process is, and we have an opportunity over the next year and certainly the next 2 years. As a matter of fact, it's not necessarily an opportunity. It's an obligation to straighten this stuff out. There is no reason in the 21st century where we can do open heart surgery and do all kinds of fantastic things, cars driving without people in them and so on and so forth, that we can't know on the day after the election who won these elections. And let's face it, these things that are done so that cheating can occur. We in Pennsylvania, in the district that I'm proud to represent, we had one of our counties putting drop boxes around for mail-in ballots. Just think about that. Drop boxes for mail-in ballots. Now, if you can make it to your mailbox, you don't need a drop box. There are mail-in ballots, but somehow it's easier to drive to some place to put, these ballots in a box. These boxes are meant for one thing and one thing only, and that is fraud. And all this craziness needs to end. What we need to do is follow the Constitution, have election day, not election month or election 2 weeks after the election, vote in person, prove you're a citizen, and let's count the votes after that. That's what we need to have, and anything that moves away from that is meant to skew the results in the favor of those who can game the system. That's what we're seeing right now. It is absurd. It is unacceptable. I don't care if you live in California or Pennsylvania. You should be outraged by it, and it has to end.
No, it does. It's got to end. What happens, though? Let's say Senator Casey, he's refusing to concede. You've got to be able to seat the new Congress, and you've got poor Dave McCormick out there. Who gets the seat if Bob Casey refuses to concede?
Well, if Bob Casey refuses to concede, at some point the new members are going to be sworn in, and the new Senate is going to be headed by Republicans. And like it or not, Chuck Schumer can cry his eyes out all he wants to, but Dave McCormick is going to be and he's a senator-elect from Pennsylvania, and he's going to be seated as a senator from Pennsylvania. I hope that while he may not have conceded, Bob Casey is busy packing up his office because somebody's going to need that very shortly.
All right. Well, Congressman, appreciate the update there in Pennsylvania as well as the other crazy stories, and we appreciate you coming on the show today.
God bless you, Todd. Thank you and your audience.